There are moments in life that feel too strange to be real. Like your brain rejects them before it has time to process what they actually mean. That's what happened when I saw the photo. I didn't feel angry or sad or betrayed, not at first. I just stared at it and blinked. It was buried halfway through a shared album called Cabin Weekend. Harper had sent it to me that morning. No explanation. Just a Dropbox link while I was standing in the kitchen waiting for the kettle to boil. She and Ava had gone upstate for 3 nights. Just girl time, Harper had said. Wine, trash TV, and sleep. Maybe a few walks. Honestly, nothing to write home about. The first few photos matched that description. Hiking selfies. A charcuterie board by a fireplace. A pair of wine glasses on a windowsill, out of focus. Then came one of them in a canoe, heads back in laughter. Another of Ava wrapped in a towel, holding a beer. Then came the photo. I stared at it, my thumb frozen above the screen. They were both naked. Not in an accidental, you had to be there kind of way. It wasn't a wardrobe malfunction or a blurry drunk snapshot. It was clear, deliberate, and framed like someone had taken it on purpose. Harper and Ava, standing in front of what looked like the upstairs bedroom window. Arms around each other. Laughing. Close enough that their hips touched. Ava's hand resting just above Harper's hip, dangerously close to not being platonic. Harper's head tilted slightly, eyes closed, lips parted in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. I blinked again. The kettle screamed behind me, shrill and insistent. I shut it off and leaned against the counter, phone still in my hand. I zoomed in, then out, then in again. Part of me thought maybe I was missing something. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But there's a difference between accidental nudity and intimacy. And what I saw wasn't a joke. It wasn't an accident. It was the kind of closeness people don't share unless something's already happened, or about to. She came home 2 hours later. Thai food in one hand, keys in the other, humming something off-key. She kissed my cheek, kicked off her boots, and asked if I could set the plates while she lit candles. I didn't answer. We sat on the couch. I handed her the phone. She looked at the photo, blinked once, and said, "Oh, that doesn't count." I didn't respond. I just kept watching her, like maybe she hadn't seen the right picture. Maybe she was thinking of something else. She scrolled again, nodded to herself, and said, "It's just girlish intimacy. We've always been like that." I remember the way her voice didn't flinch. Calm, casual, like what I was seeing and feeling was a math problem she'd already solved. Like it was already behind her. "Did you sleep with her?" I asked. She frowned like I'd asked her if she'd stolen a traffic cone. "No. Jesus, Elliot. It wasn't like that. We were drunk. It was just fun. She's my best friend. But if it had been a man..." "Oh, come on. Don't be reductive." That word stayed with me. Reductive. Like I was the one flattening something sacred. Like I didn't understand what modern relationships were supposed to look like. Like I was being narrow-minded for thinking intimacy had boundaries. I didn't eat. She offered to reheat the food later, but I just went upstairs and lay on the bed in my jeans, eyes on the ceiling. She came up an hour later, brushed her teeth, changed into pajamas, and slipped in beside me like nothing had shifted. She didn't touch me, didn't ask if I was okay, just turned toward the wall and pulled the blanket up to her chin. The next morning, she made eggs and kissed my forehead like it was just another Wednesday. I watched her from across the kitchen table, trying to spot the version of her I used to know. "You're still quiet," she said. "Are we really doing this again?" I didn't answer. The rest of the week, I pretended. That's the only word for it. I went to work, came home, nodded when she asked about my day. I lay beside her in bed and listened to her scroll through her phone. But inside, something was shifting. A current pulling away from shore. Quiet, slow, but unstoppable. I started thinking about lines. The ones we draw. The ones we cross. And more than anything, the ones we let someone else define for us. She said it didn't count. But it counted to me. Not because she was naked. Not because of what may or may not have happened, but because of how easy it was for her to decide what meant something, what didn't, what deserved a conversation, and what could be explained away with 3 words and a shrug. That was the part that kept me awake. Not the image itself, but her certainty. Her ability to redraw the shape of our marriage without asking if I agreed. And maybe that's the real betrayal. Not the touch, but the erasure of your right to feel anything about it. I still have the photo. I haven't deleted it. I don't look at it often, but I can't bring myself to throw it away either. It's proof, not of the affair, if that's even what it was, but of something else. A shift, a fracture. The moment I stopped being someone she considered. I haven't told anyone. Not yet. But I will. This story doesn't end with silence. It ends with someone finally saying, "This counts." The first time I tried to forget the photo, I opened my laptop and forced myself to watch something loud and meaningless. An action movie with too much CGI and a plot that fell apart in the first 20 minutes. But even as explosions filled the screen, my eyes kept drifting to the corner of the room, to where Harper's tote bag was slumped against the chair, half unzipped. I remembered something she said once, half asleep and laughing into her pillow. "Ava's so bad with passwords, I swear I could hack her entire life if I wanted." It had been a joke, but now I wondered who else thought that was funny. On the 3rd day, I opened her laptop. I didn't feel good about it. But that's the thing about betrayal. It makes you compromise pieces of yourself you didn't think were negotiable. And Harper had stopped asking questions, stopped offering anything. If she felt any guilt, it was buried under a thick, practiced silence. Her desktop was as clean as I expected. 3 folders: work, design inspo, and receipts. A minimalist fantasy. But I knew Harper better than that. She kept things. Not in the way hoarders did, but in the way people do when they like having leverage. I searched her mail first. Nothing obvious. A few emails from Ava, mostly chained replies about furniture orders and hair appointments. A shared Pinterest board called Cabin Vibes, full of wool blankets and rustic bathtubs. Then I checked the archive. That's where I found it. Not a confession. Not a love letter. Just a calendar invite from 6 months ago titled "Mothership Meeting, Private." No location, no context. But the invitees listed only 2 names, Harper and Ava. I almost missed the attached file. It was a zip folder named BlueJ_edits_final. Hidden 3 clicks deep. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Not the ones from the shared album. These were raw, unfiltered. Less posed. A sequence of Ava brushing Harper's hair out of her face. Harper laughing with her head tilted back, eyes glassy. Ava's arm curled around her from behind on the porch swing. Bare feet, side by side on the kitchen counter. Then, later, photos I wasn't supposed to see. One of Harper lying on a couch, only partially covered by a knit blanket. Another where Ava is behind her, lips close to her ear, both of them smiling at something just out of frame. None of them were explicit, but they were intimate in a way I couldn't explain. The kind of closeness that isn't staged. The kind that belongs to people who've crossed lines, even if they're not willing to say it aloud. I didn't copy them. I didn't even finish scrolling. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for nearly an hour, listening to the refrigerator hum. My palms were sweaty. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was slow, measured, like it had adjusted to the new reality. That night, I didn't ask her about the photos. I didn't tell her what I'd seen. Instead, I watched her sleep. Her body curled toward the window, one hand tucked under her chin. Peaceful, innocent, even. I kept wondering if she believed what she said, if she truly thought this didn't count, or if she knew, deep down, how far she'd gone, how far they both had. It wasn't the affair that gutted me. It was the conviction in her voice when she explained it away. The certainty that she owed me nothing, that the story she was telling herself mattered more than the one I was living through. That's when I stopped waiting for an apology. and started preparing for answers. The next day, I texted Ava. I hadn't spoken to her directly in months, maybe longer. We were never close. Harper always insisted that Ava was her person. I was just the guy on the edge of the circle. The husband. A presence tolerated, not embraced. Hey, do you have a minute? 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Nothing. I waited an hour. Still nothing. So I called. It rang once. Twice. Then her voice, too cheerful, too practiced. Hey, Elliot. Everything okay? I didn't answer right away. I saw the photo, I said finally. A pause. Which one? That told me everything. She knew. Ava, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't want to fight. I just want to understand what happened. She exhaled slowly. Look, you're not wrong to be confused. But there's nothing to understand. We didn't do anything wrong. You were naked. She laughed, softly. We were drinking. It was playful. Harper said you might overreact. I told her it was her call. That's convenient. You want me to apologize for what, exactly? For hugging my best friend? For laughing with her? We didn't cross a line, Elliot. At least, not the kind you think. I didn't argue. I just let the silence sit there, heavy and waiting. She cracked first. She's lonely, you know. You've been distant for a while. That landed like a slow bruise. I wanted to tell her how wrong she was. How many things I'd swallowed. How many times I tried to reach Harper only to find her distracted, locked in her phone, always texting someone I wasn't allowed to ask about. I wanted to tell her that loneliness isn't an excuse for lying. But I didn't. I said, thanks for the honesty. She replied, I hope you can get past this. For her sake. Then she hung up. That night, Harper didn't notice I wasn't touching my food. She didn't ask why I went to bed early. She didn't even look up when I brushed past her in the hallway. The part that scared me wasn't that she was lying. It was that she didn't feel like she had to anymore. And somewhere between that realization and mourning, a decision began to take shape. The thing about betrayal is that it rarely arrives all at once. It comes in fragments. Small fractures in the story you've been told. A sentence that lands a little too softly. A glance held a second too long. A piece of clothing you don't recognize, folded neatly in the wrong drawer. For me, it was a sweater. Harper always folded her sweaters. She said hangers stretched the shoulders and made them look sad. I never thought about it until the day I found the green one. It was tucked at the back of our closet, not folded, but hanging. Sloppy. Half fallen from the hanger, the arms twisted. The kind of mistake Harper wouldn't make unless she was rushing. Or unless the sweater wasn't hers. I stared at it for a long time before I touched it. The fabric was soft, lighter than what she usually wore. No tags. No scent I recognized. It looked expensive, but not in a brand name kind of way. It looked curated. And it wasn't Harper's. When she got home that night, I asked, "What sweater?" She said, standing by the sink, drying her hands. "The green one. Hanging in the closet." She frowned, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a flicker of something behind her eyes. Not guilt. Not fear. Just calculation. "Oh," she said, too casually. "That's Ava's. She left it after the trip. She said I could keep it. You're not wearing it." She shrugged. "It's not really my color." I waited. I watched her. "That's it?" I asked. She turned toward me, eyes narrowing like I'd started a fight. "What do you want me to say, Elliot? That I'm sleeping with her? Would that make this easier for you?" "No," I said quietly. "It would just make it honest." She didn't answer. She dried her hands, tossed the towel over the oven handle, walked past me without another word. I stared at the green sweater for a long time that night. Eventually, I took it off the hanger and laid it flat on the bed. I looked for something, anything, that would make me feel stupid. A tag, a receipt, a hair tie in the pocket. But it was clean, just fabric and silence. I didn't put it back. Instead, I folded it the way Harper used to fold hers. Neatly, precisely, like I was preserving something I didn't yet understand. The next morning she noticed. "Why did you fold that?" she asked, sipping her coffee. "You said it was Ava's." I figured I'd treat it with care. She looked at me over the rim of the mug. Her mouth didn't move, but her eyes did. That little twitch of irritation. The way she blinked twice, slowly. The way her jaw tightened. "You're reading into things again." "No," I said. "I'm just paying attention now." That was the end of it. At least out loud. But inside, something was shifting. I started noticing other things. Her phone, face down on the table. A new password I hadn't seen her type before. A song she started humming in the car, one that Ava used to play on repeat, but Harper had always said annoyed her. The intimacy didn't disappear. It just changed direction. She still touched my shoulder in passing, still laughed at my jokes sometimes, still asked what I wanted for dinner. But there was a vacancy behind it, like she was performing the role of a wife rather than living it. The next incident was small. Stupid, even. She told me she had a book club meeting, but I couldn't find the book in the house. And Harper was a meticulous reader. Tabs, annotations, dog-eared pages arranged like a map of her mind. But this one, the one she said she'd been discussing, was nowhere. Not on her nightstand. Not in her bag. Not in the car. I didn't bring it up right away. I just waited. 2 days later, she mentioned the book again. This time with detail. That scene where the character throws the wine bottle? God, it felt so real. What page was that on? I asked gently. She blinked. What? You said there was a wine bottle scene. I just wanted to read it. She hesitated. Not long. Just enough for me to know she was improvising. I gave the book back, she said. It was Ava's copy. Of course it was. I smiled and nodded. She smiled back, a little too quickly. And I wondered when this had become our version of communication, testing each other for gaps in the script. That night, I went out for a walk. It was cold. The streets were quiet. I passed a bookstore that was still open and stood outside, watching people browse without looking for anyone. I thought about asking for the book, seeing if the scene existed, but I didn't go inside. I realized it didn't matter. The truth wasn't going to arrive through a missing detail. It was already here, sitting beside me every night, wearing borrowed sweaters and pretending things hadn't shifted. The betrayal wasn't in what she did. It was in what she decided didn't need to be explained. When I got home, Harper was asleep. The lights were still on. Her phone was buzzing softly on the nightstand. I didn't touch it. I just sat on the edge of the bed and watched her breathe. And I knew soon I'd have to decide what counted for me and what no longer did. The invitation came in a group text. Harper, me, Ava, and 3 names I didn't recognize. It was a dinner. Nothing fancy. Just a low-key celebration for Ava's 32nd birthday at some new Italian place downtown. Harper sent a thumbs up. One of the other women added a string of heart emojis. I didn't respond. Harper walked into the living room a minute later, her phone still in hand. You saw the text? I saw it. You're coming, right? I looked at her. Noticed the slight tension in her shoulders. The way her thumb rubbed her palm while she waited for my answer. Do you want me to come? She sighed. Elliot, I wouldn't have added you if I didn't. That wasn't an answer. But I nodded anyway. The night of the dinner, she wore a black silk blouse I'd never seen before, tucked into high-waisted jeans. Her hair was styled looser than usual, waves undone just enough to look intentional. When she turned around, I caught a glimpse of a gold chain slipping beneath the collarbone. It wasn't the one I'd given her. You look nice, I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Thanks. You ready? The restaurant was all polished wood and exposed brick, the kind of place that tried to feel rustic while charging $28 for a plate of pasta. The others were already there. I recognized Ava immediately, of course I did. and next to her was a woman with a shaved head and sharp eyes who introduced herself as Marcy. Then there was Tessa, all warmth and chatter, and someone named Brooke, who barely looked up from her Negroni. Ava smiled when she saw me, but it didn't quite land. It was a smile people give when they're waiting to see what version of you've brought with you. We sat. The conversation moved fast. Inside jokes. Memories from the cabin trip that I was supposed to laugh at. Harper held her glass of wine like it was something precious. Ava spoke in short bursts, mostly directed at Harper, occasionally tossing a comment toward me as if she'd been coached into it. Then came the toast. Marcy stood up, clinked her glass. To Ava, for always being the kind of woman who tells the truth, even when people don't want to hear it. Harper laughed, touched her hand. Tessa hooped. I just sipped my water. Ava raised her glass, her eyes flicking to me. Here's to being loved, she said. Even when it doesn't look the way people think it should. They all drank. I didn't. Later, while Harper was in the bathroom, Ava leaned across the table toward me. You're handling this better than I thought you would, she said softly. I haven't decided how I'm handling it. She nodded, like that made sense. She doesn't want to hurt you, you know? She already did. She doesn't think of it that way. And that's the problem. Ava looked at me for a moment, then glanced toward the restroom. She's scared, she said. She should be. That shut her up. Back home, Harper took off her earrings in the mirror. I watched her reflection. The way she moved. The care she took with each piece, like she was undoing a costume. Did you have fun? She asked. Sure. She turned. Don't do that. Do what? That thing where you say the opposite of what you mean. I didn't respond. She set the earrings on the dresser, crossed her arms. If you have something to say, Elliot, just say it. I stood there, arms heavy at my sides. You're in love with her. She blinked, didn't deny it. What does that mean to you? I asked. Silence. I mean it, I said. What does that mean? Because if it means sleepovers and half-truths and jokes you won't explain to me, then fine. But if it means you've left this marriage without saying the words, I deserve to know. She sat down on the edge of the bed, rubbed her temples. I didn't plan for any of this. That's not an answer. She looked up at me then, eyes tired, mouth a flat line. She made me feel like someone again, she said. You don't know what that's like. You're always so steady, so sure of everything. I felt invisible. You could have told me. You wouldn't have understood. You didn't give me the chance. She stared at the floor. I didn't sleep with her, she said finally. If that's what you're waiting to hear. I'm not, I said. Because I don't care what happened between you. I care what stopped happening between us. She didn't cry. Neither did I. But something cracked open then. Not in a dramatic way. Quiet. Like a candle reaching the end of its wick. I stood there for a long time, listening to her breathe, watching her not look at me. Then I turned, walked out of the bedroom, and closed the door behind me. It started with the green sweater. Or maybe it ended with it. After that night, after Harper's half-confession, her quiet retreat into herself, I stayed in the guest room. She didn't protest. We lived like housemates after that. Cordial. Careful. We talked about groceries. Scheduling. Who was picking up the dry cleaning. But nothing else. Nothing that mattered. I moved through those days with the precision of someone taking inventory of their own life before an evacuation. Every drawer, every corner, every memory, and the green sweater stayed folded perfectly at the back of my closet. One morning, 2 weeks after Ava's birthday, I took it out. I didn't plan to. I was getting dressed for work, reaching for a sweater of my own when I saw it. Still soft, still untouched, still exactly where I'd left it. I held it for a long time. Then I put it in a paper bag, drove it across the city to Ava's apartment. I didn't call first, didn't text, just stood in the hallway staring at the brass numbers on her door until my hands stopped shaking. She answered on the third knock. She didn't look surprised. I held out the bag. This is yours. She looked down at it, then up at me. I told Harper she could keep it. I'm returning it anyway. She took the bag. Okay. I turned to go, but she stopped me. She's not okay, Ava said. You know that, right? I didn't turn around. Neither am I. Then maybe you should talk. We did. She told me what she needed me to know. And she never asked what I needed. The elevator arrived. I stepped inside. Didn't look back. That evening, Harper wasn't home. Her coat was gone. Her phone charger too. No note. No text. Just absence. I sat in the kitchen and stared at the wall for an hour. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. The air felt full of things unsaid. At midnight, I heard the door open. She moved quietly, like someone entering a church. I didn't call out. Eventually, she found me in the kitchen. She didn't speak, just stood there, coat still on, eyes dark. I gave Ava her sweater, I said. She flinched, almost imperceptibly. She didn't seem surprised. Harper walked to the sink, rested her hands on the edge. I didn't think you'd do that, she said softly. No, you thought I'd keep pretending. She didn't argue. I wasn't trying to be cruel, she said after a while. I just didn't know how to say I was unhappy without hurting you. So you decided to hurt me quietly. She turned then, face pale, eyes rimmed red. I didn't know how to stop needing her. You didn't even try. That's not fair. No, I said. It's not. But neither is building a second life and pretending the first one's still sacred. She looked like she wanted to cry, but she didn't. Do you still love me? I asked. She didn't answer. I nodded. That was the answer. I want the house, I said. You can take what you need, but I'm not leaving. She blinked. Are we really doing this now? No. We did this months ago. I just didn't know it yet. She slid into a chair. Exhaled. I didn't cheat, she said, for the last time. I believe you. Her head snapped up. I believe you didn't sleep with her, I said. But you still left me. She didn't respond. I got up, left the kitchen. In the bedroom, I began folding her clothes. Not with spite, not with anger, just with the clarity of someone who finally saw the truth without asking for it to be softened. The next morning, she left for Ava's. No tears, no fight, just a hug at the door that felt more like a goodbye than a pause. I didn't watch her car pull away. I just went upstairs, took down the shared photos from the walls, deleted the shared calendar from my phone. That night, I slept in the middle of the bed. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. It's been 4 months since she left. Long enough for the house to forget the sound of her footsteps, but not long enough for the silence to feel normal. At first, I kept expecting a message. Some text at 2 a.m. that said I'm sorry, or can we talk, or even just her name blinking across my screen, as if that alone would be enough to begin again. But nothing came. That was the clearest answer of all. She took most of her things the second week. Ava came with her. They didn't speak much, just moved from room to room in a rhythm I wasn't part of anymore. I didn't help. I didn't stop them either. Harper packed her books, her perfume bottles, a few old Polaroids she kept in a tin box at the back of the dresser. She left the coffee mugs we bought together. She left the plant I gave her on our first anniversary. She left the green sweater folded on the chair in the guest room. She didn't say why. I didn't ask. Some days, I think about that photo, the one that started all of this. I used to replay it in my head like a scene from a movie I hated but couldn't stop watching. Now it's blurred around the edges. The pain isn't gone, it's just quieter, like a bone that healed wrong and aches when the weather shifts. I never showed the photo to anyone, not because I wanted to protect her, but because I didn't want the story reduced to nudity and confusion. That photo didn't break us. It revealed us. Or maybe it revealed me, and she'd been living in the open the whole time. I started therapy 2 months ago. The woman I see, Ellen, has a warm voice and the kind of stillness that makes you feel like you've entered a room that's been waiting for you. Do you miss her? She asked me last week. Yes, I said. She didn't look surprised. What do you miss? It took me a long time to answer. I miss the version of her I used to believe in. She nodded. Do you still love her? That was harder. I'm not sure, I said, but I still feel something when I think about her. Some shape that hasn't dissolved yet. That seemed to be enough for now. I've been going through old things. Sorting, tossing, trying to make space without erasing too much. Her handwriting still shows up on sticky notes in the drawer. The one on the fuse box that says, "Don't touch this unless you want to start a fire," makes me smile, even now. There's a strange kind of grief that comes with the end of a relationship like ours. Not because it exploded, but because it unraveled. Slowly, quietly, with polite sentences and well-timed silences. You look back and realize the betrayal wasn't a single moment. It was 100 little ones. A gradual shifting of weight until you were carrying it all alone. Harper emailed once. Short, formal. I hope you're okay. I think of you often. I didn't reply, because I am okay. Not in a triumphant, movie-ending kind of way, but in a real way. I'm learning how to be alone without feeling like it's a punishment. I make dinner for one. I go for walks at dusk. I speak out loud to no one sometimes, just to hear my own voice filling the space she used to occupy. I've even started dating again. Nothing serious. Just coffee mostly. Conversations with people who ask questions and actually wait for the answers. No secrets. No trapdoors. I've stopped asking what counts. Whether intimacy without love is still a betrayal. Whether love without loyalty still matters. Whether silence can be louder than confession. Because here's the truth I've learned. It all counts. The way someone looks at you when they think you're not watching. The touch that lingers a second longer than it should. The words that don't get said, but hang in the air like smoke. It counts when someone forgets you in a room full of laughter. And it counts when you finally stop waiting to be remembered. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.